Alrighty, so the votes are in. You guys apparently want 40k lore, so here it is. Here's the polls. Don't blame me for this video. This is all on y'all, okay? So, what exactly was the Emperor's plan with Space Marines? You see, this is more theory crafting than anything, but I think I actually know. I think it's actually pretty fascinating. But there is a few things that we have to consider. Is that, one, the Emperor's plan for the Space Marines could have just simply been that he foresaw what the Imperium was going to be after the Horus Heresy. Like, he already knew the Horus Heresy was going to happen. There seems to be a lot of evidence in the newer Siege of Terra books that the Emperor already knew the Horus Heresy was going to happen. He already seemed to know that he's going to be imprisoned on his golden throne for like 10,000 years. So there's some evidence to say that maybe he created the Space Marines because he needed these eternal warriors to be a vanguard for his civilization. But if this wasn't the case, is what we're going to really dive into. Like, what if the Horus Heresy never happened? What would the Emperor's plan have been for the Space Marines? So, let's dive right on. So the first thing is that we have to look at is the predecessors. That would be the Thunder Warriors. And then we have to look at the Thunder Warriors' predecessor as well. Now I got your attention, right? Now you're like, wait, there was someone the Emperor created before the Thunder Warriors? Do we have canon on this? Yeah, it's called Custodies. Now, the thing with Custodies is that they are immortal. As far as we know, they age extremely slowly. Extremely slow. It's so slow that we've never seen a Custodian die of age. And the interesting part is that they will retire from service the moment that they feel their body aging, which is very interesting. Because again, to them, it's like a small fraction of a millisecond. We're not talking a millisecond, we're talking a fraction of a millisecond that their reflexes are delayed, and they can pick up on that and go, whoa, I'm getting too old for this shit. I gotta retire because I'm not gonna be able to protect the Emperor. That indicates to me that they can live a very, very long time. Now, Space Marines, on the other hand, we see this very interesting thing with the Horus Heresy novels, is that those Space Marines are genetically modified to not die of age. Now, the newer Space Marines that are being made, the process isn't really too well refined. They've kind of lost a lot of that technology. They don't even do genetic testing anymore before they start implanting. So you have these people who will still die of old age, but it could be like 600 years, 1,000 years later. So they could still live quite a while. But the Horus Heresy Space Marines could not. They could not die of old age. They were very, very well built, very well tested and modified. So that begs the question. When it came to the Thunder Warriors were made to be a short, shock trooping kind of situation where they were extremely powerful but extremely short-lived. They were extremely good at conquering the entire planet, but they were not extremely good for anything else outside of that. They were meant to quickly sweep the board, and then by the time they're at the end of the board where they finally took over the entire chessboard, they look back and they're already falling off the edge as well because they're just dying of all their genetic malfunctions. Space Marines, on the other hand, were designed differently. They were designed to be eternal soldiers, always dutiful, never having to worry about other things like raiding, pillaging. No, they weren't really supposed to be human, quote unquote. And we see a lot of fascinating examples of Space Marine life in civilian life regards to the Salamanders, the Emperor's Children, and the Thousand Sons. Now, we also see Ultramarines as well, but I don't really want to dive too much into that. Ultramarines are very complicated. But when we see these three in particular, these three very well stand out. How Space Marines and the plan that the Emperor had for the Space Marines could have been done. I think they could have just been like judges, cops, arbitrators. This is pretty much how they could have lived. They could have even been scientists. Because after all, Space Marine's brain is much, much better developed than a brain of a normal human. So this makes it very interesting where the Emperor's plan for the Space Marines could have been just simply that. Eternal guardians over the Imperium who don't die of age and they can aid humanity side by side, helping them discover new technologies, helping them discover new depths of the warp, helping them discover new ways of crafting materials. And this is where we see the Emperor's Children and the salamanders is the whole crafting thing. They tend to work side by side with humans, crafting beautiful art pieces, crafting beautiful, sturdy sets of armor that the normal human would have thought was impossible. But then a Space Marine shows them, no, this is how you do it. This is how you make a very finely crafted weapon. And then you have the Emperor's Children, who always pushed and showed them new songs, new art, new and higher ways of humanities. Then you had the Thousand Sons. Now the Thousand Sons, they were able to have an entire civilization based off of their own culture. That's pretty interesting with Prospero, where you see Prospero was developed as a very psyker-heavy society. And you see that the Space Marines are freely teaching these people how to properly use their gifts as a psyker. And this is where you can look at the Emperor's idea for what the Space Marines could have been. And this is perfect. Like, if the Night Lords were loyalists, they could have been the cops of the universe. So you would have an eternal guardsman. You would have an eternal cop who would patrol a planet over and over again, and he, with his amazing brain, be able to identify a crime scene and identify the perpetrator almost instantly, because he's been doing it for over 5,000 years. Then you could have other situations as well. Like, you could have a Iron Warrior or a Iron Hands, either one, honestly, they're both kind of the same, working in a manufactorum, working in a factory, and they're showing the humans how to properly inspect and properly design some futuristic sci-fi bullshit tank. And they can do it amazingly, just flawlessly. This is where I think the role of the Space Marines would have been, had the Horus Heresy never happened and had humanity just been in an era of peace. This is most likely what it would have led to, was these eternal guys who at one point picked up a gun, a sword, and carved out an empire in the galaxy. But now that the galaxy is theirs, they can turn to other prospects, which is research, eternal vigilance, anything. Teaching humanity that there is no glass ceiling, that the potential humanity has can always be broken, and newer and higher levels can be achieved, as long as they work hard enough. And that is where I think the Space Marines would have probably been. I think it's always very fascinating to look at certain legions and see how they behaved in the Horus Heresy, and then come up to these conclusions. Like, you have the Ultramarines, who were more or less statesmen. They can help run logistics. In other words, you wouldn't need the Administratum. Instead, the Administratum would be completely composed of Space Marines. Could you imagine that? Going through all this augmentation to become this super buff badass, and then finally when you're done, you're just handed a pen and a large desk, and you're just like, all right, I need you to start crunching in these logistical numbers, because the economy on planet XXX is utter shit, and I need you to fix that. They could do it. They could do it much faster, too, than a normal human. This would be amazing for human life. Human standards of living would have been elevated. We see this with the Emperor, too, where he does have a bit of philosophical debate about how much people in the Imperium aren't exactly living their lives. And his main goal, it seems, with humanity is that, yes, I'm creating a bit of a dystopia right now, where people are subjugated, people are living in squalor and filth, but this is a necessary sacrifice to lay the foundation for a better and brighter future, where I can worry about people's day-to-day activities. I can worry about people's liberties and freedoms. But right now, I need to establish a strong foundation. And I think that's what would have happened, was that the Space Marines would have guided these civil liberties. They would have guided people up into these higher stratums of life. They would have shown them proper morals. They would have shown them proper philosophy, would have shown them proper science, showing them newer and higher ways that humanity can achieve things. You don't need to set out across the stars to mark your name in history. You can just simply be at your desk, working day to day, side by side with me, and do amazing work that can lead to someone achieving their name across the stars, but you still contribute to something. That's more or less what I would say the plan was for the Space Marines. Let me know down below what you guys think. Of course, this is all up to interpretation, but this has been the best theory crafting since all the Horus Heresy books have been kind of coming out. And as I said at the very beginning, there's more and more evidence now showing that the Emperor really did plan for the Space Marines just to be eternal warriors. But in the earlier Horus Heresy books, it kind of didn't look that way. It looked like the Space Marines were honestly bored shitless. They had no enemies to fight. So what did they turn to? If I have no one to fight, well, maybe I can fight science. Maybe I can research new things and teach all these other scientists that I am not only a warrior in merits, but I'm a warrior in mind. That is what I think could have happened. Besides that, has been Freedom 700. See you guys next time.